first part of our lock onto our flap. And I've got the front panel, the back panel, and I've got 2 screws which I've put over here to keep safe because I tend to lob them all over the place, and a small cross-bladed screwdriver, a craft knife, and a small cutting board. So I'm just going to pop those out of the way. And first thing I've done is I've marked centrally on this accent panel. So I've marked a mark, it's 3.5 inches away from the edge because this is 7 inches wide. And I've marked a mark that's central from top to bottom of that accent panel. And then I'm using the back plate of my hardware, positioning it centrally, and I've marked a line inside of the rectangle in the middle and the 2 holes. Now, it would be easy to say, let's just cut it, but what I find easiest to do is to actually, if I hold this up, you can probably see that, I hope you can see it. I'll do a line of stitching below that rectangle and a line of stitching above that rectangle, about 1/8 of an inch on the outside, because where I've drawn inside of the gap, that's actually the piece that's coming out. I need to stitch just a little bit above and a little bit below, and I just do a couple of lines of stitching which just compresses the foam a little bit inside. It makes the whole thing a lot easier to fit, and I'll go as far as where the dots are that I need for my screws. This won't be visible on your finished article, so don't worry too much about it. If you've got a zigzag stitch, you could even use a zigzag stitch. I don't have such a thing, and my foot pedal has disappeared underneath my desk now. So that's one on the top. This just helps to hold all of the layers together. As you're cutting, and it compresses the foam, which makes it a little easier to fit. So there's a line of stitching below and a line of stitching above. Now I'm going to take, it's not an exact science, but I'm going to take my, I don't know how sharp my craft knife is, and I'm going to cut out that rectangle. I'm cutting a little bit on the outside of those, of the rectangle that I've drawn, because the rectangle was drawn through the gap, so it's the inside, so I need it, the gap needs to be slightly bigger than that is. You may find that you have to do several cuts to go through all of the layers. I've also got the little things that you hammer, the little dies that you can hammer, and they work really well as well, but not everybody has them, so I figured that actually I'd show you how to do them without. You might need to go through several times with your craft knife to get through the layers, because you remember you've got faux leather, you've got your exterior fabric, you've got your woven interfacing, you've got foam, you've got a lining fabric and another layer of woven interfacing, so you've got quite a lot of layers there. So I've just cut the ends, and let me just, if I just use my scissors, I should be able to just trim those corners where I've literally not got threads. No, it's still not gone through there. Let's just go back again and do that a bit more. It's the corners that you find that tend to not get caught. It does take a little bit of patience to do it with a craft knife, but I feel much more in control with one of these than I do with a hammer and the cutters, to be honest. So that's 2 layers, and I just need to get my lining, trim through my lining. Oh, that's almost cut through anyway. So you don't need lots and lots of fancy gizmos and gadgets for hardware. I know it's, if you've got all of the gadgets, then use the gadgets. I have most of the gadgets. I'm a great fan of a gadget. But when I'm doing videos for my patterns, I figure that not everybody's going to have the gadgets. So I need to show you how to do it without. And most of us will have a craft knife sitting in our rooms at some point, or even a Stanley knife, you know, the sort of thing that you might use in your shed. So if you haven't got a craft knife, go and raid hubby's shed, or your neighbours, or your dad's, or any man, because men have got men have things like that. There'll be women accosting men for knives all over the country now. In fact, probably worldwide. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Right, so I've taken out all those extra bits, and you can see I've got a, I don't know if you can actually see, I have a hole. I put my hand behind it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the front part of my hardware and just make sure that that hole is the right size, because sometimes you need to just take a little bit extra out, and that's exactly the case here. I've been a little bit mean. So I just need to take a little bit more out on both ends because I'm not quite long enough. And I continue to do this with a craft knife. You could use a pair of very sharp scissors if you wanted to. I just feel like I'm much more in control with a knife. It's not for everybody, I do understand. Any of those bits of fluffy stuff left over. Try that one again. That's better. Right, having done that, I then need, you can use whatever tool is your sort of preferred tool to cut your holes for your hardware. This is what I use. I'm just going to double check my measurements for that, just to make sure that I'm can't see my original marks because I've been cutting around, so let's just do them in silver. Ah, that's better. I'm just going to use my press it until it's clicked, and then I kind of give it a little twirl, which just gets rid of the worst of it. And then poke out the hole, only because they get really clogged up. And then sometimes you don't get a decent cut. So if you poke out the bits of faux leather that are kind of stuck in the hole, you get a better cut. Ready, steady. Just got my lining fabric, didn't quite cut through, so just a few fibres. So now you can see better on the back. I've actually got 2 holes, one either side, the line of stitching that I did at the top and the line of stitching I did at the bottom. And then this is the bit where we get to have a good swear, I find. I'm just gonna give that a little polish, and I'm going to pop my hardware onto that, over that hole, and I'm just going to use an awl just to kind of manipulate the fabric so that it sits exactly where I want it to. Now, if you wanted to put fray check on your fabric before you do this, you can do. I very rarely use fray check when I do these. I've never felt the need to. I think doing that line of stitching tends to be enough. So I've got everything where it needs to be. I can't let go because I've kind of got fingers holding everything in place. I'm going to put the back down. I'm going to grab my first screw. And it should slide into the hole fairly easily. It's not going to, just because I said it. Let me just... Okay, why is this not gripping into there? I want to know. Let's try the other screw. Maybe I've got, I've just taken this hardware from something else, so I may have slightly cross-threaded screws. I don't know. I just realised I didn't have a big enough one for this bag. Okay, I'm going to... Okay, let's give up on that one and go to the other end and see if we can get the other end in. Okay, I'm having no success there at all. What's going on? Let's just make sure it fits without the backing. Pretty sure it will. And it doesn't, so I think there's something perhaps wrong with my lock. I'm going to find another lock and I'm going to come back having done it, but you get the idea of exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. Don't be like Christine and pinch a lock from something else. Use a new one because you've probably, I think I've probably got cross-threaded screws or something like that. But you can kind of get the idea of how this is supposed to fit. I could sit here all day doing this.